In our headlines on this Wednesday, February 25th, here in South Korea. The benchmark KOSPI index sets a fresh milestone today, just 1 month after soaring past the historic 5,000 mark, driven by global demand for memory chips. Meanwhile, U.S. President Donald Trump delivers his State of the Union address on Tuesday evening U.S. time, touting trade and tariffs in a record-setting speech that lasted over 1 hour and 47 minutes. Also in the U.S., South Korean Ambassador Kang says Seoul will actively work with Washington to ensure trade talks advance under an amicable atmosphere. South Korea's benchmark KOSPI index soared past the 6,000 mark today, just 1 month after breaking through 5,000. Our correspondent Park Junan covers the new milestone.
The KOSPI made history on Wednesday by surging past 6,100 during the day and closing at a record high above 6,000, capping off a remarkable rally that has captivated investors worldwide. The benchmark index climbed to close at 6,083, driven by robust gains in key sectors amid global optimism in the technology and automotive industries. Leading the charge were heavyweight stocks like Samsung Electronics and SK Hynix, which built on Tuesday's milestones, where Samsung hit 200,000 Korean won and SK Hynix reached 1 million won. The rises were supported by strong demand for semiconductors, fueled by advancements in artificial intelligence and partnerships in the tech space. Adding momentum were automotive giants Hyundai Motor and Kia, which both jumped sharply on expectations of advancements in robotics and autonomous driving. The two companies are shifting beyond car makers to become physical AI companies. As a result, the two surged by 9.16% and 12.7% respectively.
Hyundai Motor's identity changes entirely depending on whether it is viewed as a legacy automaker or a core player in physical AI. Through its recent partnership with NVIDIA, the company has gained confidence that its technological capabilities could advance to a level approaching that of Tesla.
KOSPI's 6,000 comes just over a month after it first crossed 5,000 on January 22nd, marking the fastest 1,000-point gain in its history. The index has soared more than 44% year-to-date, outpacing all major global markets and claiming the world's top return rate. Amid the significant stock rally, concerns do linger about sustainability. The rally's heavy reliance on just a few megacaps like Samsung and SK Hynix raises concerns. But an expert claims that it is the megacap companies that have the money and technology to dominate the market, which is universal in many countries.
When it comes to AI technology, companies without sufficient capital simply cannot get close. Firms that rank within the top 10 by market capitalization are, in a sense, our national champions. For now, the priority is survival. Discussions about sharing the gains can come after they secure their position.
While some domestic and international securities firms have raised year-end targets to as high as over 8,000, short-term volatility triggered by concerns over a tech bubble or external disruptions beyond the Korean market could still challenge the KOSPI's ongoing rally. Park Junan, Arirang News.
Over in the U.S., a little over 6 hours ago, President Donald Trump began a record-setting State of the Union address that lasted over 1 hour and 47 minutes. Our Cho Young-un covers that address.
Kicking off just after 9 p.m. Eastern Time on Tuesday, Trump opened his speech with a triumphant assessment of his first year back in the White House, declaring this is the golden age of America.
Today our border is secure. Our spirit is restored. Inflation is plummeting. Incomes are rising fast. The roaring economy is roaring like never before, and our enemies are scared.
Touting his economic record, Trump credited this to his controversial global tariffs, which were struck down by the Supreme Court less than a week earlier. Pointing to stock market gains and new job creation, Trump said his decision to focus on imposing tariffs, despite warnings from many economists, has worked well for the economy.
As thousands of new businesses are forming in factories, plants, and laboratories are being built, We have added 70,000 new construction jobs in just a very short period of time. It's getting bigger and bigger and stronger.
After the Supreme Court delivered a major setback to his agenda by striking down his sweeping tariff, Trump described the ruling as unfortunate. He maintained that alternative legal mechanisms remained available to impose similar tariffs, reiterating his belief that these could eventually replace income tax.
But the good news is that almost all countries and corporations want to keep the deal that they already made.
The president went on to highlight his immigration crackdown and also praised efforts to stop the flow of fentanyl into the U.S. and lower the murder rate. He delivered extended remarks recognizing victims of violent crimes committed by people who were in the U.S. illegally, with several family members in attendance.
We now have the strongest and most secure border in American history by far.
Coming ahead of the country's November midterm elections, Trump also added a surprise element to the evening, awarding medal to service members and inviting the U.S. men's hockey team to the chamber following their Olympic win. 조영은, Arirang News.
Also, during his State of the Union address, Mr. Trump took time to reaffirm his stance against Tehran's nuclear ambitions as his military reinforces its presence in the region surrounding Iran. Our Chung Hye-rim has the latest.
U.S. President Donald Trump issued a stark warning to Iran during his State of the Union address on Tuesday, the first address of his second term.
My preference is to solve this problem through diplomacy. But one thing is certain, I will never allow the world's #1 sponsor of terror, which they are by far, to have a nuclear weapon.
His remarks come amid a major U.S. military buildup in the region. The military has deployed over 150 aircraft across Europe and the Middle East, following recent nuclear talks with Iran ending without a breakthrough on February 17th. According to flight tracking data and satellite imagery reviewed by the Washington Post on Tuesday, this marks one of the largest U.S. force buildups in the region in more than 2 decades. The deployment includes fighter jets such as F-35s and F-22s, along with refueling tankers, surveillance aircraft, and cargo planes. Tehran is now showcasing its own military power. On Tuesday, Iranian state TV released a video of the Revolutionary Guard conducting coastal drills. The footage shows forces launching missiles, flying drones, and firing at targets, though the exact time and location of the exercises were not disclosed. Despite the tensions, the United States and Iran are set to resume nuclear talks in Geneva on Thursday. Iran's foreign minister said Tuesday that a deal to avoid military confrontation is, quote, within reach, but warned Tehran would respond firmly to any attack. The talks come at a critical moment as both sides seek diplomacy but weigh national interest as a priority. Meanwhile, oil prices rose amid concerns over the standoff as markets weighed the risk of conflict alongside the possibility of renewed negotiations. 정혜림, Arirang News.
South Korea's top diplomat to the U.S. has reaffirmed Seoul's stance to maintain close consultation with Washington over tariffs and trade, with priority placed on protecting national interests. Our Kim Do-yeon has details.
South Korean ambassador to the United States Kang says Seoul will actively work with Washington to ensure trade discussions proceed in a friendly atmosphere. Speaking to correspondents in Washington on Tuesday local time, Kang addressed the aftermath of the U.S. Supreme Court's ruling that declared reciprocal tariffs illegal and the Trump administration's subsequent move to levy new global tariffs. She emphasized that the embassy is closely monitoring the Trump administration's follow-up measures, including additional tariffs to protect South Korean interests.
We will provide support so that consultations with the U.S. can proceed in an amicable atmosphere. Regarding the refund of reciprocal tariffs already paid, which was not clearly addressed in the ruling, we will ensure accurate information is delivered to our companies in a timely manner.
Meanwhile, observers in Washington suggest the U.S. Trade Representative could launch a Section 301 investigation of Coupang's data breach case and also the Korean government's investigation of the company. That comes as interim Coupang CEO Harold Rogers attended a closed-door House hearing in Washington on Monday. A Section 301 looks for potential foreign trade practices that are deemed unfair, discriminatory, or restrictive to U.S. commerce, which could lead to additional retaliatory tariffs. However, diplomatic sources note that even if a probe begins next month, it requires hearing the Korean government's position. On the security front, Seoul and Washington are continuing discussions on implementing their joint fact sheet, which covers cooperation on nuclear power submarines and nuclear energy. Ambassador Kang affirmed that the embassy will act as a bridge to expedite these agreements, pending the passage of the Special Act on Investment in the U.S. currently in South Korea's National Assembly. Kim Do-yeon, Arirang News.
President Lee Jae-myung has highlighted yet again the importance of encouraging foreign travel beyond Seoul. Do take a listen.
지금처럼 외국인 관광객의 80%가 서울에 집중되는 현실에 만족하면 관광 산업의 성장이 한계에 봉착할 수밖에 없습니다.
Chairing a tourism policy meeting at the Blue House earlier on this Wednesday, he called for the launch of region-specific travel programs and for more visitor-friendly infrastructure and services. The government aims to attract 30 million inbound tourists annually. Now, last year, almost 19 million tourists flocked to South Korea. In other news, the National Assembly on Wednesday approved a motion to end an opposition-led filibuster and then proceeded to pass a revision to the Commercial Act, which will prevent companies from freely stockpiling treasury shares. The People Power Party opposed the amendment and staged an unlimited debate during Tuesday's plenary session. However, the ruling Democratic Party used its parliamentary majority to bring that filibuster to a close today. Following the vote, lawmakers tabled amendments to the Criminal Act that introduced a new crime of legal distortion, bringing the number of bills left on the agenda to 7. With the PPP pledging to launch filibusters against every single one of them, the Parliament is headed for its longest plenary session yet. The number of newborns here in South Korea last year jumped almost 7% on year to raise the country's birth rate to 0.8. Our Ian Jin has the latest findings.
South Korea's birth rate grew at the fastest pace in 15 years in 2025, with the number of babies born tallied at 254,500. That's according to a government report released on Wednesday, which said the figure rose 6.8% from 2024, marking a birth rate increase for the second consecutive year. The country's total fertility rate has also risen to 0.8 for the first time in 4 years. The Ministry of Data and Statistics attributes the rebound to an increase in marriages and the continued rise in the number of women in their early 30s, a figure that has been increasing since 2021. It noted that the number of marriages rose for 21 straight months between April 2024 and December 2025 as couples who had delayed their marriages due to the pandemic got married. The ministry also highlighted that there's been a notable change in social perception towards having children. The number of couples planning to have children after marriage rose by 3.1 percentage points in 2024 in the ministry's latest biannual survey, while there was also an increase in the proportion of people willing to give birth outside of marriage, which increased by 2.5 percentage points. With such data, the government projected the total fertility rate of the country to stay above the 0.8 level this year and to further rise to 1 by 2030. However, this still keeps South Korea's birth rate the lowest among OECD countries. Meanwhile, the number of deaths also went up 1.3% on year in 2025, which means the country saw a natural population decline of 110,000. Ian Jin, Arirang News.
Come next month, Seoul and Washington will launch their regular springtime defense drill, and relevant details were disclosed in a joint briefing earlier this afternoon. Our defense correspondent Kim Bo-kyung reports.
South Korea and the United States will stage their annual joint springtime military exercise, Freedom Shield, from March 9th to 19th. In terms of field training that is usually conducted in a concentrated fashion during this period, the allies said they were still consulting on how the drills will take place this time, but that they will be executed in a balanced fashion. This is reportedly due to South Korea's request to adjust the drills, seemingly to reduce any reaction by North Korea. They added that the drills serve as a chance to support ongoing preparations for a conditions-based wartime operational transition.
During the exercise, our militaries will carry out a joint assessment to test if the future CFC can fully operate as part of transferring wartime control within the current administration.
The press release for the exercise did not specifically say it would involve scenarios featuring direct North Korean threats. Rather, it said the drills will focus on deterring the regime's nuclear threats.
The exercise will focus on deterring DPRK's WMDs, which include nuclear weapons. The Mutual Defense Treaty does not name an adversary. We're here to ensure that both Iraq and U.S. can defend the Republic of Korea against any adversary.
Several UN Command member states are to contribute to the exercise, and the Neutral Nations Supervisory Commission will observe the drills to monitor compliance with the armistice agreement. Kim Bo-kyung, Arirang News.
And the commander of U.S. Forces Korea has voiced regret that Defense Minister An Gyu-baek was not briefed in time on its recent air drills over the West Sea. In a statement Tuesday, General Xavier Brunson said he spoke with Minister An to clarify that notification was provided at a working level, but regretted that the minister and the JCS chairman were not briefed in time. Now, this follows a rash standoff last week when Chinese fighter jets were dispatched in response to some 10 USFK F-16s flying between the air defense identification zones of South Korea and China. Following a complaint from Seoul about the lack of advance notification, the U.S. military ended the exercise on Thursday, 2 days earlier than planned. This week also marks the world's 4 years, that is, since Russia attacked Ukraine, and despite efforts to end the former's aggression, Moscow appears intent on maintaining its military campaign. Our Lee Seung-jae reports.
4 years after launching its invasion of Ukraine, Russia said Tuesday that it will continue fighting until it fully achieves its objectives. Moscow maintains it's open to a peaceful resolution, but insists any progress depends entirely on Kyiv's actions. The Kremlin is again demanding that Ukraine give up the Donbas region, making clear there will be no compromise on territorial issues. President Vladimir Putin accused Ukraine of obstructing peace negotiations and warned there would be consequences for any nuclear strike against Russia. Ukrainian President Vladimir Zelensky pushed back, saying Ukraine has defended its independence for 4 years and that Putin has failed to win the war. He also urged Europe to step up pressure on Russia. At the same time, Russian intelligence has claimed that the United Kingdom and France are planning to send nuclear weapons to Ukraine. Russia's Foreign Intelligence Agency, the SVR, alleged that London and Paris are preparing to arm Kyiv with a nuclear bomb in what it called a blatant violation of international law. The claims were amplified by Russian state media, but provided no evidence to support them. Ukraine has also strongly rejected Moscow's accusations. European leaders marked the anniversary in Kyiv, vowing not to abandon Ukraine as the war entered its 5th year. British Prime Minister Keir Starmer joined the talks by video link, saying allies must do the hard work of supporting Ukraine and increasing pressure on Moscow. The UK also announced its largest round of sanctions since the early months of the war, targeting nearly 300 Russian entities, including oil pipeline giant Transneft. Lee Seung-jae, Arirang News.
This is the world now.
bringing you everything you need to know from around the globe. Record-breaking rains in southeastern Brazil have led to 25 deaths in a single day. Officials confirmed the death toll on Tuesday after torrential downpours triggered massive landslides and flooding. The disaster hit the city of Juiz de Fora hardest, where rescuers are currently searching for 43 missing people. The Brazilian government declared a state of calamity as rainfall levels reached double the monthly average for February. More than 140 firefighters have been deployed to lead humanitarian relief and reconstruction efforts. In the United States, NBC Today show host Savannah Guthrie is offering a $1 million reward to find her 84-year-old mother, Nancy, who vanished 3 weeks ago. The FBI and Arizona police suspect a kidnapper snatched Nancy Guthrie from her Tucson home on January 31st. Surveillance footage showed a masked man outside the residence on the night she vanished, and authorities said drops of her blood were found on the front porch. Savannah Guthrie issued a desperate plea Tuesday, stating her family needs closure regardless of the outcome. Alongside the reward, the family is donating $500,000 to the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children to support other families in crisis. Mexican President Claudia Sheinbaum on Tuesday guaranteed total safety for the 2026 FIFA World Cup despite a surge in cartel violence. The capture and death of top cartel leader El Mencho recently sparked arson attacks and roadblocks across Jalisco state, forcing local soccer leagues to postpone matches. FIFA said it is closely monitoring the situation. New roadblocks appeared overnight, but President Sheinbaum said the situation is getting back to normal and security forces are working to safeguard public safety. Mexico is set to host 13 of 104 World Cup matches, with the tournament opening on June 11th. French President Emmanuel Macron on Tuesday accepted the resignation of Louvre Museum director Laurence Descartes following a massive security failure. The world's most visited museum has faced intense scrutiny since October, when thieves stole jewels worth $102 million. Critics, including the state auditor's office, have questioned security and infrastructure spending. The museum has also recently had water leaks and strikes over pay. President Macron praised the resignation as an act of responsibility necessary to modernize security and restore calm and new momentum to the Paris landmark. Chu Ji-han, Arirang News.
Here in the capital area, we had a picture-perfect weather this afternoon under clear blue skies with clean air. Hope you had a chance to enjoy it. Temperatures were pushed more than a month ahead of schedule, and tomorrow looks to be a repeat of today with more clouds moving in. But the morning starts off on a chilly note at 2 degrees in the capital, 3 degrees in Gwangju. However, highs will jump more than 10 degrees by the afternoon. Seoul and Gwangju will be getting up to 15 degrees Celsius, Busan getting up to 14 degrees, and southern regions will continue to have cloudy skies, but air quality will remain good nationwide. Spring-like warmth continues through the long weekend, while Jeju Island will see more wet weather for the time being. With that in mind, here's a look at the international weather conditions.
Right, those are the headlines at this hour here in South Korea. As always, thank you for watching.